moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, is Greg. Greg, how's it going, man?
It's going fantastic. Mark, how are you?
What?
I am hanging on for dear life, but I'm doing great. How are you?
Dear life. Well, pretty good, man. Pretty good. Actually, our talk in the green room made me feel like we were shooting the shit about a funny Canadian comedian, and I thought, holy crap, this feels like really normal. Like we're like the finer points of somebody who's very funny, very famous. Good for her. Good for her. So it felt good. It felt normal. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. We got to find moments of normalcy and talk to other people who are sane, you know?
Indeed. It's a hard way, or it's hard to find people who are sane these days. Hard to find people who are I mean, it's even hard to start bridging conversations at the park, right? Like I've noticed, I walk around, like I get steps and stuff, and I've noticed that people in the park will stop talking if I'm like kind of approaching, and not like I don't think I'm aggressively walking in the park. I'm just getting steps. And usually, like, I've talked to a lot of the people before, but if I haven't spoken to the people or they don't know me, then they'll like stop talking and like, or get quieter. So I think that's an interesting thing to notice. That's an interesting thing because it didn't used to be like that. If you had an opinion, you're like, I hate those fireworks in the park and those kids, lighting off. Nobody ever got quiet about that when you were approaching. And now I heard some people saying, kind of bullshit, blah, 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 but I got closer and then all of a sudden they weren't talking. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's notable. Different.
No, absolutely. Out of all the stuff that we've talked about on the show, it seems like the frickin' COVID show at this point. But we've talked about many different elements of our society and how it's been changing. But we haven't, you're right. Like there's so many social implications,
Mm-hmm.
like you just mentioned, that you could write a whole textbook on it at this point.
Oh yeah, there's lots going on.
So like it's kind of changing so rapidly that trying to keep up with it is seems like an impossible task. But yeah, generally people are isolating more. Generally, every single conversation you have is political now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's inescapable.
Yep.
With COVID and everything going on, and it's funny to think that people are like, oh, we're just having a conversation about mandatory vaccines. What's political about that? What's political about that?
I'm just sharing my opinion. What do you mean? Another thing I find interesting is the way that the newspapers and the media get us to fight and focus on something else. So Doug Ford has closed everything down, right? And he closed down playgrounds, and he closed down skate parks, and he closed down golf. And then people were like, you can't close down playgrounds. And then Doug Ford opened up the playgrounds again, but skate parks and golf are closed. So now we're fighting about skate parks and golf instead of fighting about the wholesale removal of our access to healthcare, access to education, and access to the judicial system, which we pay taxes for. Isn't that weird? That's strange. We're fighting about golf in the skate parks.
It's brutal, man. It's brutal. And that kind of goes into our first story, I think, which is, they're basically taking our freedoms away on the internet.
Yeah. And
no one is talking, next to no one is talking about it. CBC's not talking about it.
Yep.
I'm going to be really disappointed to see if, we'll see what politicians talk about it and who don't.
Yeah.
But because there's more coming down the pipe.
Oh, there is, I'm sure. To bring the viewers up to speed on what we're talking about, the government is introducing a bill called Bill C-10. And Bill C-10 is allowing the government to monitor and remove and have the CRTC be in charge of governing user-created content on YouTube or Facebook. If this video, if the law was in place, this video would be subject to CRTC rules and guidelines and restrictions and all of that. And then if it didn't comply, the government would just remove it. They would send me a notice and they would take it. I don't even think they'd send me a notice. They'd just tell YouTube to take it down. Sorry, you don't comply with Canadian law.
Yeah, and I think what's what's even worse and more alarming is they're actually taking our freedoms away with the second bill that's coming as well. So they're coming at it from the CRTC angle with Bill C-10. But if I'm not mistaken, Guilbeault is introducing another bill next week that is going to focus on like stopping online harms. So it's going to be actually creating a methodology for the government to essentially ban anything they want because of harm. CRTC is more along the lines of, or like the Bill C-10 is more along the lines of regulating like broadcast content as if it were like the CRTC. And to give you an idea, like the CRTC is this glacial bureaucratic organization where if you have to apply to get a license for a radio station, it's a long process. It takes a long time. Like, you know, if you lose your license, that's it. It's a total, it's a big bureaucratic mess. And like, it's there for a reason. But unfortunately, you know, especially in recent years, a great example actually is the Faith Goldy campaign, where in Toronto, where the CRTC rules were broken, like quite flagrantly. Nobody cared. There were no real repercussions. And it's like, wow, so this CRTC institution of our democracy, really, like it's there to like uphold our democracy, all that stuff. It's, you know, it applies to mass media and making sure there's a fair conversation. None of that ever happened. And we just kept chugging along. Quite frankly, that's actually the reason I joined politics to begin with.
Yeah,
I went into school for you know, university media studies, radio broadcasting, and it was pounded into my head how important the CRTC rules are. If you break one of these rules, that's a no-no. That's a real no-no. And then I graduate. I see this political thing happening. It's very spicy and like, oh, they didn't follow the CRTC rules. This is a sign that, you know, our democracy is showing cracks in its foundation. Yeah, that's not good. No one's talking about this.
Yeah, and during that time, I was doing my show then as well, and and I was saying they're going to they're blueprinting this. What they're doing to Faith Goldy, they're going to do nationally to Bernier. And I said that on my show a bunch of times. I was like, "This is they're blueprinting this." And so I'll tell you what Guilbeault said here, or Guilbeault, whatever. New statement from Stephen Guilbeault, says Michael Geist on Bill C-10. Despite claims of safeguards, government is removing a key safeguard that was essential to protecting free speech. Without it, all user-generated content is treated as programs to be regulated by the CRTC. He carries on, as I just said to Evan Solomon, the exception from Guilbeault on Bill C-10 is astonishing. He told Canadians C-10 has an economic threshold. It doesn't. It excludes news. It doesn't. And won't affect Canadian ownership. It does. And is the same as European implementation. It isn't. And will generate money from creators this year. It won't. Now he says it doesn't implicate free speech when his own department told the committee that it does. Time to hit the reset button on C-10. The thing that I think is going to happen here, and then we'll move on to the next story, is I think that we're going to run into an election, and then they'll reintroduce this garbage when they've got a majority. I don't think they've got the runway to get this passed right now. Not because of backlash, because I think they'll ram it through. Not because the minority government won't let it, but I think something's going to trigger an election before this goes through. That said, as soon as they have the majority, they're going to get it. They're going to push it in. Yeah,
and it might be this. This bill that pushes the election. I've heard that, like, you know, they bring it down, push back. Yeah.
I think there's more of an argument for an economic trigger. I think there's more of an argument for the budget to trigger an election than this. But I could be wrong. I think the Conservatives are totally on board. I think the Conservatives want to do this as much as the Liberals. They're frothing at the mouth. They're drooling. They're so excited.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting because it's the slow inch. It's the slow tiptoe of authoritarianism. And everyone's going to say, what? Oh, like this new censorship bill is just going to stop, you know, exploitative type of stuff on the internet. I won't say it because YouTube will flag it. But and it's like, no, you know, no. Like, like anytime you watch an interview of Guilbeault talking about this stuff, it's like, I'm sorry, you know, would I say this to his face publicly? You know, you kind of act like a slime ball, man. Like the way in which you talk, the way in which you kind of go about saying things. Like it's deliberately vague.
Yeah.
Everything that he's talking about. And yeah, it's like, what's the one quote he said? Oh yeah, there's not a lot of countries doing this right now. You know, there's a country with a big red flag and yellow stars that's doing this right now. You know what I mean? Like, there are other countries doing this right now, but you clearly don't want to mention them because it's not good for optics at all. Because it's like it's not in a free country where they're doing this right now.
Right, and that speaks to the loss of our freedoms. That speaks to even further crackdown on our freedoms. Here's a 10-minute Facebook video that is not rendering very well right here, but whatever. And I don't know if they actually continue on. They're instructed by the police multiple times to make a turn and turn back into Manitoba. And they're told over and over again, you have to turn and turn back into Manitoba. And I don't know if they actually did. I watched the interaction between them and the police officers, and they say, we're going to come up here and talk about it, and we'll let you know type deal. And they were told that they could get a fine. I don't know if they were threatened with being imprisoned. But anyway, the free movement of people is enshrined in our basic rights because of the Holodomor in 1933, right, where the Ukrainians starved because Stalin locked the borders and blah, 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 blah. All sorts of terrible things happened. And
I didn't know that connection.
Well, maybe it's not directly because of, but I think it's one of the reasons. That's what I read on Twitter yesterday, so I could be wrong about that. But I think that watching a whole bunch of people starve would be like, yeah, maybe we if we're planning things out, as general rules, let's make sure that people can get out if they want to leave, right?
It's really a painful time to be not even just a historian, but somebody who's like historically like literate, or to talk to people and say like, no, like there's seriously, like I'm telling you, like there's a pattern here, and people are just like, man, I think you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. It's like, no.
Have you seen the meme of the bull or the cow, and he's got like a crumpled up cuts, like where they've got the cow and it's got the cut written on the cow, and there's the slaughterhouse in the background, and the cow's standing up, and he's pointing to this and he's pointing to that, and he's like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the comic is the cows being like marched into the slaughterhouse, and then one cow has like a big poster board that's trying to explain like they're gonna kill us, they're gonna kill us, and everyone's like, yo, Carl, you're crazy, Carl, like with your conspiracy theories again.
Yeah, it's like a Far Side comic except we're the cows, right?
Yeah.
Further restrictions and rules for them and not us, or rules for mayors and other connected people. Windsor mayor quarantines after heading to the U.S. for medical appointments. It seems that you can drive across to Detroit, or maybe he flew, I guess, if you have a medical appointment that is necessary, or if you're a family member who has a medical appointment that's necessary. Isn't that strange? Like, don't medical appointments in the States for political leaders in the country? Weird, right? Don't we have healthcare that should cover that?
If you want to point in a direction of the decline of this country, read this headline.
Yeah.
Number one, why the hell are they leaving the country for medical service? Like that's that's so instructive. First of all, that our medical healthcare system, one of our proud leaders, one of our proud Windsor mayors from Windsor. What is he doing? He's getting the hell out of here. He's getting the hell out of here to get actual good medical service. But so that's obviously the most. It's honestly humiliating. It's just like it's so sad, man. It's so sad to see this type of stuff out in the open, and people don't see it for what it is. But then, of course, number two is, and we're going to talk about this more with the next stories. Equality isn't real, folks. Equality is not real. We're not all in this together. And I think what's interesting with COVID is they're basically, despite social justice rhetoric marching on, with COVID, they are enforcing the inequality of people having different standards for different folks, and we are treated differently, and that's just a fact. but we're also, we're also all equal. They get to work both angles. Social justice, we're all equal, and also actually we're completely unequal because you're not vaccinated. So
well, it's apartheid. It's a medical apartheid situation, right? They're creating these rules that I've even started to see that the EU's saying vaccinated people can travel there next year, and like that's concerning, right? Like vaccinated people can travel and unvaccinated people can't. It's a complete two-tiered world then, and there's no escape, right? That's not so good. That's not so good.
Yeah, it's this is a very pivotal time in history.
Yeah,
not just Canada, but I feel like I think we got to play catch up in terms of learning how to stand up on our 2 feet and have a spine, a backbone. If you can find your testes, then find them and use them.
Yeah. Well, but at the same time, I think this is a good time to point out that like there are people who fought. We fought in 2018, right, for the election then, or 2019 election, started gearing up in 2018 into 2019, or started helping for Doug Ford, ironically, right, in 2018, and then federally in 2019. And this is the result of that election. This is the outcome of that election's choice, and it's terrible, right? We've lost
we re-elected blackface.
Yeah,
like we got exactly what we deserve.
No. But I mean, there's more than meets the eye there, right? Like you saw just to put it into perspective, like the United States, the gold standard of democracy, right, had Joe Biden with the most presidential election votes in history. He beat both Donald Trump and Barack Obama. He was that amazing, right? And nobody saw it coming. 4:00 in the morning, boom, right? Biden knocks him out, right? Just like corn pop, right? You see what I'm saying, right?
Amazing.
So in 2020, we watched that happen, and like I don't think that after that made 2019 make a lot of sense, right? Like I think that there's a whole lot of really concerning situations happening around the world, and I don't think that the missteps and the draconian actions, the tyrannical actions of our government are necessarily mistakes, right? And they know that they are not going to be held accountable. Why? Because Joe Biden's so effing popular, right? He's so popular. Here's another one. Like they've removed our rights to the extent of you can't leave Ontario. They've removed our rights to the extent of they're trying to remove our speech rights online. They're trying to make it okay for them to leave to get medical access or medical treatments from another country. And now you can't leave Ontario, but they'll bring in a medical team from Newfoundland and Labrador to help Ontario when it's needed most. When asked about why it's needed, the Ontario Science Fiction Table would rather you just go away, right? Like, please stop talking now. Very interesting.
Yeah. I'm an essential worker. You're a non-essential worker. You objectively have less rights.
Unvaccinated, non-essential worker. What do you work at a coffee shop there, man? Like 33-year-old coffee shop worker.
It's only been a year of this intense propaganda, and like people are like, "Yep, this is how this works."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've had my own mother who's like, "Oh yeah,
careful.
Mandatory vaccinations. That's totally vaccine passports. Of course, I think that's a great idea."
Send her the what's her face clips. That'll help. That'll red pill her a little bit. No?
I love my mom, but I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day. And it's not to say to like give up on certain people, but sometimes you can connect. Sometimes you can really connect with somebody and you really feel like you made some progress. But then the next day, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
It's like it never happened.
That's why
it's
Ellen's
like
a
the
daily
revelation
show.
That you thought. That's why Ellen's a daily show.
Yeah, because you got to back up the programming, man. Ellen comes in, she's dancing away, right? Like she's dancing, you see her feet, right? God. And then she starts saying, hey, I hate that Trump guy, Biden's so great, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah!
My mom used to watch Ellen, and I came in one day and she was, it was like a 5-minute long, so my mom is, whenever we were growing up, we'd have conferences on my parent. Well, my mom would be like in her bed because she worked nights, right? So like after school, we'd go up and like wake her up and like it's time to start dinner and stuff. So we'd be talking about whatever. So I was waiting for the show to finish to talk to her about what I wanted to talk to her about, and it's Ellen, and it's the end of Ellen, and the DJ is like I think it was Twitch at the time or whatever. This is going back a few years, and Ellen just goes off on Donald Trump, just vicious, like 5 minutes of Donald Trump like bashing, and my mom's like, like I'm like, this isn't the news, Mom.
That was so profound.
Profound. Ellen is just sharing like gospel here.
No, that's actually that's interesting you bring that up because when it comes to somebody who is more conservative and it's like, oh, like what are your sources? What are you talking about? You would have, I don't know if I want to say like just a conservative person, but somebody who is engaged, somebody who is tapped in. If you ask them for their sources, they're like, okay, well, maybe something to do with Jordan Peterson, maybe something to do with like this expert that I found online, maybe something to do with like, this research or this, that, or like statistics. Like there's like kind of like hard evidence that like reflects why you feel that way about your reality. Mm-hmm. And then when you talk to the average normie, what's your sources? It's like Ellen, some celebrity said this. So you're trusting like the opinion of like literal like meat puppet like actors.
Cardi B.
Like that's literally where these people derive their political views from.
Have you listened?
Cardi B.
Yeah. Have you listened to the radio lately? Like the radio, like going to a store or like going to my brother's house or something like that. Because I don't drive very often. And when I do drive, I like to listen to podcasts. But sometimes I get in the car and it's like too short to put a podcast on. So I just listen to the radio until I hear a COVID thing and then I switch it. But like it is a struggle.
So you must be switching. You must be switching constantly. Yeah, no way.
The concerning ad guy, the poppy, like, oh my God, the other day my kid did XYZ thing, funny thing and they just want to get back to normal, but we all have to know that socially distancing, blah blah blah, bullshit, garbage.
Yeah, I honestly that makes me really sad because I went to school for radio broadcasting and like it is a really cool industry, but it's sad to see that. Because you've always had to conform to the CRTC rules, so like it always is kind of sanitized on air. But it's like really sad to know that it's like, okay, these are the political opinions that are acceptable, and these are the ones that are not. It's like it's crazy how that's happened so rapidly, and in only the course of like 4 to 5 years. And of course, with COVID, it's life or death.
Yeah,
it's life or death now.
Yeah. Well, and the other part with that is after Trump, they needed something else, right? So now it's the 100% focus is on like keeping. It's like baseball. It's like a never-ending soccer game that everybody has to be watching. And the score matters only so much as it's increased or decreased from the last 5 or 6 days. Yeah, goldfish.
No, but I was gonna say near the beginning of lockdown a while ago, I was in the car and I was like, oh. You know what I wanted? I wanted to see if there's any like traffic stuff going on because like there seemed to be some traffic, and I'm like, I'm gonna go see if there's like any traffic reports. And it was just COVID, and I was like, are you serious? Like, is this lit? Like this is being broadcast? Like what? Like this is all that they're ever talking about? Like I was so, oh man, and it's. I can't imagine listening to that stuff every day or even like working there. Like, are you kidding? Like, oh my goodness.
I think it's just as bad being a student too. And we'll jump back onto the track here that we've got. Speaking of rights, but yeah, I think that it's just as bad being a student, like working in an environment like that where you have to pull the party line and you have to do the, COVID's terrible, COVID's crazy. You have to play the COVID game. And people in offices who are unrelated to the COVID world are being forced to like wear masks and play the COVID game that way too. But students are being dictated to by their teachers, by principals, by Board of Education. And they're being told like they don't have as many rights even as much as a prisoner, right? Like wild. They're wearing masks for a very long period of time. University students, some students in a dormitory tested positive in New Brunswick for the coronavirus. So now all the residents are being detained in their rooms. If that was my kid, I would show up, just like at the beginning of Ferris Bueller, where they show up to pick up the girlfriend, but they're only pretending to be the parents, and I would actually be the parents. So, and just get them out and be like, oh yeah, somebody died. Bring them out. Yep. Come on, let's go. That's it. We're done playing you've gone to jail for university. That's not on. This is sick. This is sick stuff people are doing. Sorry.
Yeah,
what do you
and this
think?
is I actually have a sister who lives in Australia. She lives on the like west coast of Australia in the Perth region, very like isolated kind of region. It's like far away from the rest of the country, kind of. But essentially, a version of this happened in their region,
Really?
where somebody tested positive, and it's like lockdown, like everyone's going under lockdown, and I suppose it's maybe a little bit more justified the way in which a large region is doing it, because you want to actually stop the outbreak from happening. So like maybe that makes more sense, but like this,
Doesn't
like
make any sense.
imprisoning.
It's batshit crazy.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, you know, if you're actually going to try and stop the outbreak of a virus, maybe actually like start with the people coming into the
Right.
region or the country, as
Right,
opposed
but-
to like, oh, there's an outbreak in a university, like now we're going to like throw them all in jail.
Right.
You know, like it's
I feel like there's a lot of hubris in claiming the ability to stop a virus. You're like, hey, look at this virus thing that's happening. Let's stop. Hey, that cancer thing. Everybody stay locked in your house for 12 days and pay this tax. Cancer's gone. Everybody pay this tax. Climate change finished. If all it takes is money, man, like we got that. We could just print tons of that. Call up Trudeau. Say they want a couple of $1 trillion. Can you print that off? We got money.
yeah.
It's no problem.
And it's like, when's the last time we heard about flatten the curve?
Oh, it's all
It's not
bullshit.
about flattening. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, you know, that was a reasonable goal that made sense. Flatten the curve.
But I don't
Okay.
think, okay, yeah, it made sense in a short period of time to, if you had 2 weeks to get ahead of something, to build your overflow, to build your, you know, to train people up for ICU, to train people up for
Right.
this and that. Okay, you
Right.
use it. They didn't do any of that. They were like, hey, everybody stayed in their house, and all we had to do was say lock down, right? And then a year
Yeah, but-
later, we haven't gotten anything else, right? And sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's more importantly, they're not using that terminology anymore. It's not about flatten the curve. It's unless everyone gets vaccinated, you guys aren't going back to normal. By the way, you're not going to go back to normal anyway.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
see, I
like
think that's okay. So maybe that's the missing piece of the conversation. You're never going back to normal. Act accordingly. That's the missing bit, because I think that's the point. People think that they're working towards getting back to normal. And if we just do this little bit, this 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 more weeks to flatten the curve, if I just close my business and go on the government dole, if I just listen to these people, then something will change and we'll go back to normal. And then I can, you know, start making my life again. None of that is true. Nothing is going to change this. We are, after 9/11, they didn't wind back anything, right? They got these rules. They didn't wind anything back. And now it's the same thing.
Yeah,
9/11
it's the same
happened.
thing.
And now they're not rolling anything back. We've lost our charter rights, don't exist. That's it.
Yeah.
And I wish that I hope I'm wrong, but up till right now, we don't have access to education. We don't have access to healthcare. We don't have access to judicial, but we pay taxes for all of it. Does this
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, at this point, people are going to be on their literal deathbed and saying, "Well, then we'll go back to normal."
Yeah, it's
No,
not going back to normal.
actually,
We're not.
yeah,
We're not.
and
Maybe we can leave it there.
yeah, we can leave it there.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to. I hope that I'm wrong. I really do hope that I'm wrong. I hope that there is a pathway back to normal. But it seems with each passing day, we get further and further away from that, from the removal of our rights, the removal of our speech rights, the removal of our movement rights, the curtailing of our economy, the crushing of our economy by people who should be invested in fixing it, investing in putting it back to the way it was. Instead, they seem to be invested in destroying it, spending us poor. So,
Yeah,
you know, like,
I was just going to say, like, specifically with the way in which the media messaging works out, I think it's really just chaos. You know, like when you think about it, before COVID, like the news cycle was far from perfect, and it was very much kind of all distractions to begin with. You know, like it was all about what the weather was or the climate, and it was all about, you know, should people really be getting along, or should we be bringing back like, resentments of like race relations and like getting everybody irritable at one another so we can't even function in society, and like let's bring back Jim Crow laws basically. It was already chaotic, but with the COVID it's like really chaotic, and I think that's kind of the result of it, right? Like it's not about getting people on the same page. It's not about giving people certainty of information or any confidence.
No.
And I guess ironically, actually, although the chaos continues to be promoted, there's also this very important, you must respect the authority of our institution and how professional our production lights are and how professional we are, because we know everything. And even though we're the ones causing you anxiety, confusion, and we're really giving you like no confidence at all in the world you live in, but it's very important that you trust us.
Yeah. Well, and a really good example of that is Stephen Lacey, the education minister. So he's gone from schools are totally safe to playgrounds closed in a week. Then he's gone from having special needs kids out of the classroom, and now they're back in the classroom. There's all sorts of inconsistent things that change within a very short period of time. And it's like, well, if there's anything backing this up, you'd think you wouldn't fold, but you fold every time. And it's like, there's no, you're right. Consistency, everything is in flux. The goalposts move all the time, and it's been that way for a year, and you nailed it. It's like we're told that these people know what they're doing, and they haven't known what they're doing for an entire year, and they have been failing repeatedly and catastrophically for a year, and we've been paying for it. And that's just intolerable.
And there's mass acceptance and kind of complicity, and at some level, like an unconscious awareness of, oh, okay, our leaders are failing us. Our quality of life is going down, but that's normal. It's normal for our leaders to fail us, for our quality of life to go down, and it's like that is so alarming because it's just expected for things to get worse and our leaders to not do anything about it, and that's just the way things are now. Like throughout this whole thing, miraculously, Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, they've just been victims of the situation.
Oh, they're in majority territory, buddy. This is the Biden magic, man. This is the Biden magic. It doesn't matter. Boy. It doesn't matter. They don't have to campaign. They don't have to do anything. They're just super popular. Didn't you see how they manage this? All right. Any final words?
Find peace in your own world. Find peace in your own reality. Learn to kind of create a sort of detachment of what you read online and what you see happening, and just be true to yourself, and just maintain that reality that you're in, and take care of yourself. Can't emphasize that enough, because we need to learn to roll with the punches, to roll with the chaos, to get used to it, and it's literally a skill that's going to be pretty well a survival skill moving forward into this brave new world that we live in.
Yikes. Yes, brave new world indeed. Good advice. My advice would be to move to Florida, buy a boat with the excess money that you would get from the sale of your house, run before May 18th. But I mean, you do you, man.
Buy crypto.
Yes. Invest in crypto. Oh, man, XRP had a little bit of a bounce there. I bought the dip, baby. Buy the dip.
Yeah, did you?
Oh, okay, yeah, man. I was like 94 cents. Yes, please. Put that limit order in.
Actually, something that does give me hope is if blockchain technology gets put into the hands of a few good people, that could really be a game changer.
Yeah, and I mean, history shows that that's exactly what happens.
Don't shut up, okay? We're having hope right now. We're being hopeful and optimistic.
I'm
giving somebody to have something to have faith in. Shut up, Mark.
Faith in Florida.
Shut up.
Governor DeSantis. Okay,
come on.
Where can they find you?
They can find me at Greg Wycliffe, the YouTube channel. You can find me on Twitter at GDub, which is GDub with 2 Ds. And I'm going to release something really big soon. We're hopefully going to help stop the censorship of our internet here in Canada. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for having me, Mark.
Always, man. Always. It's always good to see you. And me, you can find at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co, and Speaking Moistly has most of our back catalog, and it's back up now, so you can check that out. And thanks for watching, everybody. Here's the Prime Minister to play us out, because that's fun. Oh, is it not going to load? Ridiculous. Oh, sorry. Okay, there it is. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. It's not going to load.
Speaking moistly.
2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Oh, what a terrible image.